the Travel Like a Boss podcast, the radio show all about traveling like a boss by being your own boss. Stay tuned for weekly interviews featuring guests that have built their own online businesses. If you would like to have access to our entire back catalog, visit travellikeabosspodcast.com for instant access. And here's your host, Johnny FD.
Hey everyone, this is Johnny and welcome to episode 144 of the Travel Like a Boss podcast. I'm here with Palle Bo.
Right.
So Palle is from Denmark, and how did we meet? You want to tell that story?
Well, it was when I was starting my planning of my new life as a digital nomad. I was looking for different podcasts and came across Travel Like a Boss podcast and listened to that a lot. And actually, it was a huge inspiration for me and one of the reasons that I'm here in Chiang Mai now.
So Palle has a really interesting story because you're not like the typical digital nomad. How old are you?
I'm 52.
52 years old, and you have a successful company back in Denmark.
Mm-hmm.
It's a radio guru. It's a radio consulting company, and you guys have won a lot of awards for commercial spots. And kind of, can you tell us a little bit about your actual company?
Yeah, I've been in radio for 32 years, and I started this company actually to the day 10 years ago. So it's my anniversary right now, and I produce radio commercials and I consult radio stations and advertising agencies. I speak at radio conventions and do workshop on the radio stations around the world. But most of all, my main source of income is producing radio commercials and sound for TV and online videos and stuff like that, but mainly radio commercials.
And now you have this crazy idea where you want to travel around the world for the next 2 to 4 years. Is that what you're saying?
5 years. Well, it's kind of open-ended. It's my plan to visit every country in the world, but and that's something I can't do in 5 years. But I'll do a good bunch of countries the next 5 years, and who knows, maybe I'll just keep on traveling.
And what made you decide to do this?
Well, in fact, it was because I've been living in the same small part of Denmark all my life, and I thought when my kids grow up and move out of the house, there's nothing tying me to Denmark. I'm in between wives, so there's nothing really tying me to Denmark. So I was playing with the idea of maybe moving to Cape Town. They have a very, very good radio scene there, and it could be inspirational. So I went there for a couple of months in 2013 and discovered that my clients, they didn't really care where I was. I rarely meet them. We communicate on the phone and on email, and it's not necessary for me to meet them face to face. So that's when I realized that, well, why not just travel to any other place? So that's when the whole idea started developing to travel the world. And then I sold my house and my car and my furniture and all my stuff, except my vinyls there in storage.
That is actually really interesting. And I wonder how many other people in your generation or your age are going to discover that soon, because more and more, everything that we do is online.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really necessarily matter if you are in this, even, I guess it helps if you're in the same time zone. But nowadays, because so many things are done through distributed teams or outsourced anyways, or everything's done through Dropbox or email, I think there's very few jobs that will never be able to be location dependent.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons I do my travel podcast is to hopefully inspire other people around the world in my age or any age really, that it's possible to do this. And the funny thing, Johnny, a lot of people, they ask me, how in the world do you fund this? How can you afford this? Did you win the lottery? But living here in Southeast Asia is so much cheaper, and I can still have my income. And being a constant traveler, I go from paying the highest tax in the world, which we have in Denmark, and to 0% tax. So that's amazing.
I think a lot of people are jealous that Americans have, let's say, the credit card reward points that a lot of the countries won't have, or will have certain types of tax breaks. And I think it's because we talk about it so much, we make it sound like this amazing thing. But there are so many countries that have pretty much a 0% tax if you're out of the country for even 6 months of the year. While in the US, we have to be out of the country for 11 months.
Oh.
And there has to be a bunch of other stipulations as well.
In fact, I can be in Denmark 6 months combined in over a year, but 42 days in one stretch.
So which means if you wanted to, every other month you can go back to Denmark for a whole month. You can see friends, you can see family, you can go to festivals or go to weddings or whatever you want to go to. I think for me, because I know I only have 35 days in the US, and if I'm going to go all the way back to the US because it's not really close to anything else, it's going to be one trip or maybe two with the max.
Yeah.
Versus if I was already in Europe or something, I can pop back into Denmark, whenever I feel like it. For a friend's having a birthday, I'll come to Denmark. Or someone's, having a wedding, I'll come for a few days. Or even if there's an event, I'll come. But for US, it's really like I have to plan it out. Like if it's a wedding, I have to say, how close am I to this person?
Okay, yeah.
So what was your cost of living back in Denmark, and what is it now that you're traveling?
I spend less money now than, because I had a house and a mortgage, and when you have a house, it's pretty cold in Denmark. I spend a lot of money on heating the house, and then electricity, water, cable, and when you have a house, you buy all kinds of stuff that you don't really need. So I spend less money living this type of life, even though I spend a lot on airplanes and accommodation, but it's less than what I used to spend in Denmark.
It's actually a really good point you bring up, because it's not that I spend less money on. There's a lot of things I spend way more money on now. For example, airplanes, hotel rooms, and even adventures. I think back in the US, I just didn't have as much time to do cool stuff. But what I'm not spending money on is ordering useless crap online every other day. Just because you get 2 days shipping on Amazon doesn't mean I need it. I don't end up buying tons of clothes or tons of furniture or just things to clutter and collect dust.
No, exactly.
I think just in my kitchen alone, back when I lived in LA, I had thousands of dollars worth of appliances.
Oh yeah.
And you never use it.
No. No, exactly. And I love kitchen appliances, but I haven't thought of it. I don't miss all that stuff now.
One thing that is actually interesting is I have never bought a flat screen TV, because when I started traveling in 2008, they had really just started coming down in price. I think before that they were like $10,000 or something, and you would never buy it. But around that time, they started being more affordable, maybe let's say 3,000 or 5,000, and people start buying it. And then a few years later, they buy a new one, So I've always had flat screen TVs, because wherever I live, whether it's a condo or Airbnb, like I have one right besides me now. Yeah. But I've never had to buy it because it's just included with the place. And what's the best about it is, when I really think about it, in the last 8 years, I probably would have went through 3 or 4 of those in just TVs, because you're replacing it every few years.
Yeah, exactly.
And just that would have been $8,000. And I wonder how many other things like that have I not bought because I've been away.
Yeah. And if having a house, it also, I had a garden as well, and I would like a new lawnmower or some stuff for that as well, and spend a lot of money on different stuff, and I'd rather spend money on adventure and collecting memories.
But do you ever miss some of the comforts? I feel like, especially as I get older, the more I value a comfortable couch or more space, or just more comfort in general.
I don't really miss anything yet. I was thinking before I left, is it going to be a few months in, and I really miss having my own couch and my own home base. Am I going to feel rootless living this way? But it hasn't come to that point yet. And also, once every 6 months, I take a longer stop. And this is my first one where I'm staying a whole month here in Chiang Mai.
So where have you been so far? When did you start this adventure?
I started exactly 6 months ago, the 6th of July, in doing 11 countries in Eastern Europe. Even though I am from Europe, I've been all over Western Europe so many times, more times than I can count. But I've never, for some reason, been drawn to visiting Eastern Europe. So I started in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, then Kiev, Moldova, which was an interesting place.
I was also in Moldova.
Oh, yeah. And
what do you mean by interesting?
Well, because it's so different and the poorest country in Europe by far, and the whole thing about I also went to Transnistria and which is totally different and not a country in itself, not a UN recognized country.
I never ever heard of it. What is it?
Transnistria. In fact, it's a part of Moldova. Officially, but they have their own border control and their own currency, and they really like to be a part of the of Russia. They had bus commercials saying our future is with Russia, and it's a very, very different place. But both in Transnistria and in Moldova, I met the nicest people. They were really interested in coming up and talking to me, even though they didn't speak any English.
It's probably because they never see travelers.
No.
Even when I was in Moldova, I don't think we saw a single other traveler. And that's the only country I've ever been to where you can walk around for the entire day and you see no tourists, zero tourists.
Exactly. And I lived in 3 different places. First, I had an Airbnb for a couple of days. Then I spent one night at a luxury boutique hotel. And then I spent 3 days with doing couch surfing with a local guy who was unemployed and was really saving money. But even though he opened his door totally for free for me, that part was the most interesting because it was authentic, and I got to meet and see how the locals live.
Yeah, I think that is really interesting. I think that is one thing that I've not done enough of is couch surf, especially in countries like that, where honestly, I mean, I think it would be interesting to couch surf in somewhere like, let's say in Thailand, but I also feel like it's so easy to travel here and meet people anyways. It's not that needed. No. But if I was somewhere like Moldova where it's literally impossible to meet anyone because there's no community there, as in like expat community or no nomad community, you're probably not going to bump into other tourists. You probably, there's a language barrier. So couch surfing actually would be a really good place to meet people.
Exactly. And I've only done it a few times on this trip, but I definitely want to do it some more. I really do. Yeah. And then from Moldova, I went to Romania to a small place called Brasov, which has the most amazing scenery.
I think I've been there. Is that the Transylvania region?
Yeah, exactly. They have this Hollywood sign on the hills saying Brasov.
Yeah, I see that.
Really ironic. And I rented a car and went driving in the mountains. There was an episode of Top Gear where they were driving in this area, and it was so stunning, amazing place.
I'm very impressed that you found it because me and my buddy Sam Marks, who I was traveling with, that was on his bucket list. Yeah. Where we went to Transylvania, we spent a few nights around that area, and he wanted to drive on that road. Yeah. And we just started driving west, and we realized it's far.
Yeah, and I didn't make it all the way to the road, I must admit, because I thought it's 200 kilometers. Oh, I can do that, but it's in very mountain roads, and it takes forever, and you drive slow. So when I was halfway there, I did the math and thought, I will be there at 10 o'clock tonight, and then I need to drive all the way back. But the way out there was stunning.
It's so beautiful. So I'm
passed
thinking
the Bran Castle, the Dracula Castle, and
So I'm wondering if it was so beautiful on the way there. I wonder if it's just going to be more of the same of that, or if is it going to be even more exceptional once we get there?
I think the road was better.
Okay.
I think because they were driving these fast cars, and it was a beautiful road and more wide and a good road. So I think it was just a little bit of that. Where I was driving, all of a sudden the cows and horses were on the road.
Yep, I remember that.
That's very normal.
But I don't know if you saw them, but there was ladies selling raspberries on the side of the road. and it was, I think, something equivalent to maybe $2 for a giant basket, for maybe a few pounds worth, over a kilo.
Yeah.
And they're the best raspberries I've had in my life.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
And then
amazing.
from Brasov, I went to Sofia in Bulgaria, and then to Macedonia, to Skopje in Macedonia, which is very, very special. It was one of the most interesting places I've been to.
I haven't been there. What did you like about it?
Well, it was weird because there were so many statues and sculptures all over Skopje, and I hundreds. It was ridiculous, and they are restoring the buildings, but only with a style from facade. Is that the word?
Yeah.
It was built in old Roman and Greek style, which is not a part of Macedonian building style. So it was sort of out of place. It looked old, but it was brand new. It was like walking around in Disneyland. And there was a rumor. I spoke to a critical journalist there, and he said that there's a rumor. It was not confirmed that someone high-ranking in the government, they spend all this money on these artworks and pay the artist just a little bit and cash in the rest for this in themselves. And that's why they keep building new monuments and new statues. That was the rumor. It's not confirmed, but
I can definitely see that happening, though.
Yeah.
It's a shame. I think every single country that I've been to that is lacking in, I would say, I don't know, maybe infrastructure or just happiness, it's always because somebody in high places is skimming.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's enough money in the world to go around. I think there's enough food. I think there's enough clean water. I think there is too much greed from a very few people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very, very curious, because I'm not in that situation and I don't know any of these people personally, but I'm very, very curious what drives these people to want to have even more money. Because I understand if you grew up in a very poor country and all of a sudden you have power, I'm sure it's very nice to have money and power.
Mm-hmm.
But wouldn't it be nicer to have money and power, but also live in an amazing country where, you can be proud of your country and you know people are happy and there's good energy around you, versus just having a lot more money, but and still live in a shit country.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really strange and weird, and I also the people of Macedonia. There are some people. They did a colorful revolution where they were having small balloons with paint and then throwing it on the buildings and on the statues, and it was like vandalism. But it was for some reason I could see the point of it. There was no violence. There was always this, they call it the colorful revolution. So you see some of these monuments with colorful dots on it. And that's like a signal of, we don't want your statues or your beautiful buildings. Use the money to improve the life quality of the citizens instead.
Yeah, I can see that, because what's the point of having beautiful monuments if people don't have basic needs?
They started it in 7 years ago, I think, as a part of, they wanted to attract more tourists to Skopje. And it is beautiful, but it's just over the top with the many statues. It was interesting and weird at the same time, and I liked it there, but it was weird. It was weird.
I can almost imagine.
Yeah.
I remember driving by a house in LA that was like a little mini mansion, I guess, and it was all white, and he had a white Escalade in the front on big rims, and he had a white sports car in front. And what made it even more over the top was he had not only one statue of David, but he had 20 more scattered on the lawn. And you would think
Did he have a lion in front of the door?
No, he just had 20 statues of David and no room for anything else. It wasn't that big of a mansion. So can you imagine having 20 of the same statues, just kind of like every 1 meter?
Yeah. But that was Skopje. There was a small walking bridge over the river, and on each side of the bridge there were like 20 or 30 statues, full-size statues of different people. And then it just continued and continued and continued.
But at least it was different people. Imagine it was just the same one.
Yeah.
Imagine if it was a replica of a statue of David.
Yeah. But from there, I went north to Serbia and got to meet the nicest people in Belgrade. I wasn't expecting anything from Belgrade. I ended up spending 10 days there, and especially my Airbnb host, they took me in, and it was during the Olympics, so I went to their garden, and we saw when they played the basketball finals against the US, and when they won the gold medal in water polo, and we were having a party, and it was a lot of fun and very, very interesting. And the Serbs, they know how to party.
I can imagine.
Yeah,
it is very interesting that you went to so many. I want to call random countries.
Yeah, but before for me, I was expecting the same, but it was so different. I thought Budapest, Bucharest, same, only a little bit different maybe. But each country had their own unique thing.
I think because they're so close together, they're all part of Europe, that sometimes we assume that it's like going to a different state in the US where it'll be a little bit different, but not so much.
Yeah.
But they are vastly different, the cultures, the language, the people.
Yeah, and very different from Western Europe. Yeah, very different.
So what are your thoughts on that, that cultural difference versus like very open borders where everyone can just, live wherever they want and everyone spends the same currency, everyone speaks the same language. So, for example, I know when I went to Brussels in Belgium, it was the first place I think I've ever been where it didn't feel like any country at all. It almost felt like I was in an international airport terminal.
Yeah.
Where there was...
Because of the European Parliament, so many people from all over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think also, it's the country where they are just super open, say, oh, whatever country you're from, come here, live here.
Yeah.
Don't bother learning, Flemish or just, speak whatever language you speak. Here's your area. Everybody, just come.
Yeah.
And it felt really weird. It really felt like the future. It felt like this weird dystopian future where it wasn't that everybody became like a melting pot. It really felt like a weird kind of a mixed salad, but not with ingredients that went together.
Yeah.
It felt like a mixed salad with ingredients that don't go together.
Yeah, that's a good picture. Yeah. I hear that Toronto is a little bit like that. Very, very multicultural.
Yeah, I think Toronto's a little bit like that as well. I have no problem with immigration or multiculturalism because I'm the product of my parents immigrating from China to Taiwan to the US. Mm-hmm. But I think the reason why it's actually a very beneficial thing is because not only do you bring in more, people for the workforce, you also bring in different cultures and the benefits of maybe that, whatever that culture is, maybe the food, maybe, all these nice things. Mm-hmm. I think the thing that saves it is the fact that my parents' generation, even though they probably should have integrated a little bit more, they probably should have, learned how to speak better English instead of only, shopping at Chinese grocery stores, only speaking Chinese, only watching Chinese TV. But the new generation of like Asian Americans, we all speak perfect English. We're all, very American in our kind of values.
You speak Chinese?
I still speak Chinese. Yeah. I would say a lot of people actually don't anymore, which maybe is also a downside that you lose a little bit of the culture that you bring. But I think it's, very important for a country to bring in the good, but then have people leave the bad at home. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole refugee thing that's going on all over the world and especially in Europe at the moment has really brought out the worst in a lot of politicians in my home country and in a lot of other countries in Europe. And I think that's bad, as if they're very afraid that just because it's different that it's wrong. In my opinion, of course, we cannot, as a country, I'm speaking about my home country, we cannot just allow anyone and come in and get the benefits of the social benefits of living there. But in my opinion, anyone who can support themselves should be welcome, more than welcome. I really enjoy having different cultures around me.
That definitely makes sense. And I also think it makes sense a lot of what you said about if someone can support themselves. I think it's kind of a catch-22 because I do feel bad if somebody needs to leave their country, especially if they don't want to leave their country, you know. But I think it's one of those things where if we want to do good for other people, first we need to make sure we need to feed ourselves so we can feed other people. You know, I think even not even thinking about a whole country, but just think about it as an individual. Let's say I opened my home to everybody and I said, you know, you guys need the food more than I do, so please take whatever you want. And there's always going to be good people that, you know, just only take their share. And then there's going to be people like, oh, well, it's free food. Let me just stay forever and just take all the food. But the problem is if I'm not first feeding myself, eventually I'm not going to even be able to work anymore. I'm not going to be able to have the resources to feed other people. So that's why I do think that it's one of those, it's a difficult situation. And I think being from a country like Denmark, where you're so in the kind of the center of it all, and there's also this like social stigma even against talking about it. You know, I think if someone had a different point of view and that wasn't let's welcome everyone, I think that people wouldn't even want to say it.
No.
Yeah.
No. And that's also some of the things about this traveling thing, getting back to that hopefully will open my own eyes, and hopefully I can inspire people. When I was in Dubai, I went to a mosque. They have a thing called Open Doors, Open Minds every day, where people that are visiting the Emirates can come in and ask about anything regarding Islam and the way of life. And that was a good thing because there's so many prejudices about the Muslims and all that, and we could really ask about anything.
I think that's really, really good. I know I don't think Denmark has it, but Sweden has the Swedish number. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh yeah.
Where you can call in and you can just talk to a random Swedish person and ask them anything about the country.
That is so good. Yeah.
I think that's very interesting. I think if every country had that, people would be, you could just talk to a random person that wasn't a politician, wasn't anyone famous, just average citizen. Yeah. I think the whole world would kind of understand each other more.
Yeah. When I was in the Philippines, I went working in the slum, helping building houses, and worked on a farm as a volunteer for a couple of days. And there was a Canadian girl that said it so well. That was on this tour. She said, if more people were traveling, there would be less conflicts. And then she said the words, "If I know you, how can I hate you?" And it's so true. So true. If only more people knew people in each country, I think there would be less conflict.
I definitely agree with that. I think by us being, traveling around, seeing other places, experiencing other cultures, we see both the good and the bad from it. And even people that I don't necessarily, let's say I don't necessarily love them, or they're, like maybe it's just not a person I like, or maybe I don't like their way of thinking or whatever it is. If I know them in person and I don't agree with what they say, I'm still not going to hate them. I have lots of Facebook friends that are very extreme in either the left or the right, and I don't agree with most of what they say. But because I know them in person, I know they're a good person. It doesn't infuriate me. I don't feel like they're attacking me, or I don't feel like I need to hate them, because I just understand. There's different people with different beliefs.
Yeah, and when I was in Langkawi, Malaysia, which is Muslim, I spent 13 hours with my Airbnb host, and for the first 3 or 4 hours, he was talking about being a Muslim. And I'm an atheist. I don't really believe in anything, really. But he kept on going about this, and I thought, why don't you stop? And then it occurred to me, he told me that on Judgment Day, in his belief, if he didn't make an effort to introduce me, he would be doomed. At least he didn't have to convince me that it was good, or have me to convert to being a Muslim. But if he did made an effort, it would count something. And he was doing it because out of sort of a love for me, or being kind to me, he wanted to help me, introduce me to this. And then the whole thing flipped from I was beginning to be annoyed that he was going on and on and on about talking about this. Then it just dawned on me, oh, he's doing it because he's being nice and it means something. So that was so strange.
Yeah, I guess that is very interesting because Denmark is mostly atheist now. Is that correct?
Yeah, mostly. It has a Lutheran Protestant church, and but people rarely go to church except on weddings and at Christmas time. It's very few people that go to church every Sunday. A lot of atheists. Yeah,
it's a very, very interesting world. I think 99% of the people that I know or I'm friends with, especially, I don't know, maybe it's just the people I meet or because people are traveling and they're just kind of just open-minded and they're not just in one place. I don't think I know anyone anymore that's really religious. I've even met a lot of people that used to be very religious that now that they're traveling, they've abandoned and now they're atheists. So, yeah, it's that is very interesting. So I know you mentioned, that you had the time to travel because your kids are growing up. You're now single again.
In between wives.
I did catch that. So you think you're going to get married again someday?
No, I don't have any plans on doing that. No, I just like the phrase.
It is very interesting. Most people refer to in between jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you hope to get out of seeing so many countries?
Being more open-minded and collecting a lot of memories. I like the idea that when I die, hopefully a long time from now, they're going to be looking at this old man in the box and saying, "What's he grinning about?" I want to collect memories and laughter lines, and hopefully that will make me just egotistical, a better person, just for me, and more open-minded. And even though I passed the 50-year mark, I still feel that I have a lot to learn. And when I started my first company with a couple of friends 30 years ago, I decided that I would never see myself as fully developed as a radio person. I always want to be better, and as a person, I always want to improve as well. And it's sort of sounds like very high thoughts, but I think that's the general idea, that I want to keep evolving as a radio professional and as a human being.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Did you travel much when you were younger?
Well, I've traveled a lot. I've only stayed in the same place, but I've traveled a lot, and thankfully, because of my radio career, I got to visit both Iran, Iraq, Greenland, and I've spoken about radio. So I've been able to travel a lot to even foreign places to speak about radio. Travel on other people's time. That's always nice. But it's the first time that I'm actually moving and living somewhere else.
Do you feel that being over 50 and being a digital nomad is very different than, the other nomads you meet or that lifestyle you meet, where most people are probably in their, early to mid 20s, or maybe in their 20s, or maybe even very, very early 30s?
Yeah, I don't meet many my age. I met a few here in Chiang Mai, but most of them are, like you say, in late 20s, early 30s. But I really don't think that people see age that much. You tell me.
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting because I'm right in that middle where I feel younger than I probably am. Right? I think I'm still very free spirited, a little bit immature. So I act exactly the way I did when I was in my late 20s.
Yeah.
And
how old are you now?
I'm 35. Yeah. And sometimes, usually, I don't know if it's because I'm Asian or whatever it is, but I look younger as well. Uh-huh. But at the same time, I'm also, I guess, I've also been doing this for so long, and I've also have an established business. I also kind of feel a little bit more mature as well on that side. Mm-hmm. So somebody was asking the other day, about how people feel about nomads that are older. So I think they said, over 40, whatever it was. And right away, I started thinking about the nomads that I've met who are over 40. And to be honest, most of them were very annoying. And I couldn't figure out why. I'm like, am I just being ageist now? Am I just thinking, like, why are they coming to the party? Like when, imagine
you're telling me I shouldn't come to the party?
Well, here's what I was thinking is like, if I was, let's say I was having a party and then somebody, someone's dad came in, would that add to the party, or would that take away from it? And then I thought about it. I was like, you know what? If I'm staying at a hostel and somebody's in their 50s staying there, do I feel uncomfortable because, I want to just get drunk and have fun, and then somebody, is there and they're, let's say they're complaining about the noise or something. And then I realized it really has nothing to do with the actual age. It has everything to do with the intention. Because if I met someone who's in their 50s and they have a very interesting life, that would add to my life. That would add, that would add to my journey. If I met someone, who, just had knowledge to share, that would be a big benefit.
Yeah, I've only stayed at one hostel, and that was in Bratislava. And I thought for some reason I don't like doing the whole dorm thing. But a smaller room, I'm totally fine with that. So I got a 4-bedroom place, and this place was so cool because, of course, there were a lot of young guys, young people there, young backpackers. But if they totally didn't see any problems in me being 50. I talked to them about this. Am I too old to be at a hostel? And they said, no, come on, you're just a person like the rest of us, and I can drink with the best.
Yeah, and I think like hanging out with you, I feel like you would be very like I like having you as part of the scene, and I think I would enjoy traveling with you, enjoy having you in the hostel. But then I met another man who was also probably exact your age at a hostel in Sofia, Bulgaria. That was like a drain being there, and it felt really uncomfortable having them there.
Yeah.
And I think the difference between you and him is that you are doing this from a very optimistic, lighthearted point of view, where you want to have fun, you want to have an adventure. While he couldn't afford to live at home anymore, and he couldn't afford to, stay in a private hotel, even though he wanted to.
Yeah.
So he had to stay at a hostel because it was cheaper, and he dreaded it. So he had that bad energy there, where, he would be sitting in the common area watching, shows on YouTube, but kind of hoping that everybody would shut up and not be there. Versus you would probably be like sitting on the couch with everyone, sharing a story, having a drink, and and encouraging that positive atmosphere.
But it's a funny thing about age, because one of my best friends, he's the youngest in the world who did visit every single country in the world. His name is Henrik. He has henriktravels.com, and he did it before he was 28. He finished in April when he was still 27. So he's so much more experienced at this whole travel thing than me. And I'm much more experienced in life in general and business. So we have this funny relationship where we mentor each other. He helped me a whole lot about visas and which places to go to and stuff like that, and the whole travel thing. And I help him as best I can with his building his business and what he's trying to do now. So it's, in some ways, I feel like the immature, So age is a funny thing.
Yeah, I think what we kind of take away from this is the age doesn't really matter. It's first, I guess, is the intent, but then second is what you have to offer. What kind of value you have to give, whether that's business experience or life experience, or just I guess even stories. Even just being interesting. I think what is annoying, regardless of your age, is I don't care if someone is 18, 29, or 59, if they ask, I don't want to say dumb questions, because there's everybody needs to start from somewhere, right? But nobody really likes answering very like low level tech questions that you can find the answer to online somewhere. Especially like, let's say I'm out at a social event where we're networking, meeting other cool people. If someone wants to spend 10 minutes asking me like a very, very boring, simple question, I don't really want to answer that to anybody. I don't want to, I don't care what age that person is. I'm like, can you please just go home and Google it? Or let me send you a link on YouTube. And
send the link and then send the link google.com. Yeah.
And I feel bad though, but I honestly, I feel bad for, and I almost didn't really understand. I'm like, how could someone be 52 and then they want this lifestyle, so they start traveling, and then they want to start an online business, but then they have zero tech skills because they didn't grow up with a computer. Maybe their last job didn't require much computer experience. So for them, I wonder, should I tell them it's too late to start, or should I tell them, maybe this isn't for you? Like, what is your opinion on that?
I don't, again, I don't see it as it comes to the person. I'm sure you can find someone in their early 30s that have the same approach. So I don't really think it's an age. I think it's more of an attitude thing. And I know of a lot of people my age that are very talented in online and knows what they're doing and could easily do that just as good as any 30-year-old or 28-year-old.
Do you feel like there will eventually, or there's a need or a benefit of having, let's say, like I don't want to say like a different meetup, but like, do you think eventually, as older people do start traveling more as a kind of nomad and working as a nomad, do you think that will naturally become kind of a clique where they, people gravitate towards each other, maybe even form? I almost kind of envision it as, instead of calling themselves digital nomads, they might start just referring to themselves as expats more, or kind of terms that, aren't maybe it's the same thing, but it's just like a kind of a different genre.
So what was the question?
So the question is, I think, I guess I'm curious, like, do you think is this something that, would you rather meet when you're traveling and meeting other people? Does it matter to you that you're meeting someone who's like 22 and just, and a digital nomad? Or would it be nice if you found a group of people who were also in your age range who are also doing the same thing?
Yeah, that would be nice to have the same, more of the same reference point. I enjoy hanging out with the younger travelers as well, and when I come to a party, they still do the Bruce Willis thing. Welcome to the party, pal. But also meeting people my age. I met a few here, and we have the same reference. We both remember the Berlin Wall and stuff like that. But
because even with me,
it's a tough question, really.
So I just realized in this last few weeks that there is a whole new kind of scene of digital nomads that are under 24, so that's more than 10 years younger than me.
Yeah.
And the personality and then the way that they communicate is very different. So very big on Snapchat, very big on, like vlogging.
Snapchat.
Yeah. And I actually invited one of them to speak at the Nomad Summit. This guy named Riley Bennett that has a YouTube channel called Living That Life.
Yeah, I heard the podcast.
Yeah. And the reason why I wanted to have him on isn't because he's killing it on FBA.
How old is Riley?
I think I don't know exactly. I think I would guess 22, 23.
Oh, that young?
Maybe 24 or something. But he definitely represents that younger crowd. Mm-hmm. So I know way more people who are making a lot more money on Amazon FBA than he is. I think they're only making, let's say, a few $1,000s a month in profit. But for him, that is the dream, because he doesn't necessarily want to spend all his time building that up. He likes making a couple $1,000s a month, so then he can focus his time on doing adventures, creating his YouTube channel, doing the kind of the fun, cool stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's why I wanted to have him on, because I could have easily had a guy on who's making $10,000 a month from Amazon, but would be kind of boring to talk to because it would just be another talk on building that business where you can find somewhere else. But for him, I'm going to try to get him to tailor his talk more towards kind of like that lifestyle, the adventure, or why he's doing it and how, what his kind of mindset is. Because I feel like I almost can't relate to somebody who is like, let's say 18 that wants to start traveling. It doesn't want to go to college, wants to go this lifestyle.
But I think it's a good thing for your summit that you broaden it out, so you speak to different generations and different. The young people is another generation.
Yeah,
Johnny.
it is.
Yeah.
And well, even this year we have a lot more female speakers too, because we realize there are so many up and coming female nomads that always kind of felt a little bit lost because it seemed like such a male dominated scene. The business world in general is very male dominated, but now there's so many more female nomads coming up. Yeah. So I like it. So as far as radio versus podcasts, I know, you have a radio consulting company.
Yeah.
But you also have a podcast.
Yeah, I do a radio bit for the National Public Service Radio in Denmark, just a 10-minute bit that I do. And then I do a podcast about my travels that I do in English on the radiovagabond.com. And I try to do 1 or 2, sometimes 3 episodes, not that long. Try to keep them below under 30 minutes from each place I visit, and try to use my radio experience in doing something that is different. Even though that English is not my mother tongue, I try to do it in English, so people can follow.
So do you think that there's room for both, or do you think eventually one or the other is going to take the majority share, either radio or podcast?
I have no idea. At the moment, I just do the podcast thing because it's fun and I enjoy doing it. And it's kind of my scrapbook as I document everything, and hopefully it will get to inspire people. I don't make any money from the podcast, so. In fact, I spend money on hosting it and promoting it. But still, I enjoy doing it, and it takes a lot of time. I spend a long time producing these things.
Yeah, I can imagine. I haven't listened to it yet, but the way you describe it makes me think of like a Radio Lab type of.
Yeah, that's sort of my. I don't want to say I'm Radio Lab because nobody really is, but that's my inspiration. Radio Lab and This American Life, that kind of programs. I try to build a montage of a lot of sound and music and recordings in the street. So it's not just like you and me right now.
Yeah, but I do think there's
not that there's anything wrong with that.
Well, I was actually going to say, I think there's a market for everything, because
exactly.
I actually personally don't like This American Life or Radio Lab. I've tried to like it because everyone else likes it, and I listen to it, and I can appreciate how much effort it takes to edit and create these shows. But the reason why I don't like it is because I feel like it's less about the actual the content and more about trying to make it like a fun story and with effects and
production
skills, but also even just creating like artificial drama or create almost like almost like a TV show where they can't just have an episode where you just hear from the people. You have to have a plot twist. You have to have this. You have to have that.
Yeah, but sometimes if I stop and think, am I really this interesting that people would go and listen to a podcast about my travel? But then I try to collect stories that would hopefully entertain and inspire people. So that's really what I'm trying to do with it. But you have these moments where you think, am I really that interesting that people would listen?
You know what? I don't know. And I don't know if I am either.
And please tell me to stop.
No, but here's what I do think is we are definitely not interesting to everyone in the world, but there's going to be a few people, and be with the internet now, a few percent could be, 40,000 people who are like, you are exactly the type of person that I want to hear from.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be, and I think like things like Radiolab are trying to appeal to everybody. They're trying to appeal to like the multi-millions, so there's definitely a huge market for it. Yeah. But I also think there's a huge market for people that are like, I don't give a crap if you have a storyboard, Johnny. I just want to hear from the person. I want to hear about their life. I want to hear about the travels. I want to hear how they're doing it. Yeah. Yeah. And if it's entertaining along the way, perfect. But you don't need to artificially, storyboard it out.
No, true. Absolutely.
So the other thing I kind of want to, I think about podcasts, I think the reason why there's always going to be a place for it. And I think for people like me that like this kind of stuff, I think we're going to kind of go towards this more. But whenever I listen to radio spots with interviews, so whether it's a radio spot, but especially like, let's say a TV spot or something, let's say there's someone who wrote a book and they're going on a book tour or a radio book tour, whatever it is. It's always the same, format. It's always like, I don't know, what is it, 10 minutes or 15 minutes, a very short format. They ask the same kind of 5 questions. They throw in some sound effects to make it fun. They throw in some pre-scripted jokes, and then that's it. And I can't imagine, first off, it being fun for the author doing that, because they're just answering the same questions all the time. Which is probably why they just want to get it over with.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine it being very beneficial to a listener who listens to more than one of those.
No.
Because if they listen to it from like KYZ2 versus KZ2Y, it's just probably the exact same 5 questions.
Yeah.
Versus on a podcast, they can literally just have one hour episode and just really dive in deep, share everything, and that can be syndicated across the world and not just on that local broadcasting station. And then if they want to go on another podcast, that topic may be completely different.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think the podcasting medium is so interesting. I think I did my first podcast in 2006 and have been doing it on and off. I do a podcast in my production company as well, where I share ideas and tips about radio advertising and interview interesting, talented, award-winning producers around the world as well. And I think the podcasting medium is very, very interesting and unique. And I've been listening to so many podcasts for so many years that it surprises me when I meet people that say, no, I never listened to podcasts. Really?
It's still a huge percentage.
Yeah. I think we're a very small minority that actually consumes podcasting.
But I'm willing to bet anyone listening to this also listens to 5 other podcasts.
Yeah.
And you hardly ever listen to anything else. Because I feel like once people discover podcasts, they're just like, wow, this is so amazing. Yeah. Why would I do anything else?
Yeah.
Versus there's still 90% of people in the world who just haven't discovered it yet. And that's why I think podcasting is the future, because pretty much everyone I've met who starts listening to it, they are hooked.
Yeah. And on my, I have a iPhone 6 Plus, the biggest model that was at the time. And it's always full and half of it is sound. And I don't have one song. I have a few audiobooks, but then it's podcasting. And I consume so much podcasting. The only problem is not enough time of the day, because there's so much I want to listen to. So much good stuff out there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the one thing that I think is maybe the next level even is actually audiobooks. Because I think podcasts are great for a mixture of kind of information and entertainment. And also what's current, what's kind of fun. But I think now when I listen to someone that I really, really like, I will go get their audiobook. Or I'll buy, I guess if you want to read, you can get their ebook. Because then you realize, man, instead of me listening to 40 hours of their podcast where they put tips all the time. So like in every episode you'll get maybe 3, 4, 5 tips. If you just read their book or if you just listen to their audiobook, the whole thing is tips.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not as entertaining. Maybe it's not as, kind of lighthearted and fun. Obviously, it's not free. Then you have to buy a book or buy an audiobook. But I've kind of realized that if my goal is to get information from someone, I'm just going to buy their book. If my goal is to be kind of entertained, then I'll listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
So that being said, what are some of your favorite podcasts or audiobooks?
Oh, audiobooks, I really, one of my favorite audiobooks, and that's also a best-selling book, is Simon Sinek's Start With Why. I really enjoy that. And all of Seth Godin has done a lot of great marketing books that I have as audiobooks. And I enjoy that because both Simon Sinek and Seth Godin, they read them themselves, and they don't have the perfect voice, but to me it's very nice when the author is reading it, and it's mostly marketing and business books that I listen to. I do the occasional John Grisham novel, but mostly it's something that will inspire me and make me smarter.
Okay. I do like that. Right now, I'm listening to an audiobook called Sapiens, which is the brief history of mankind. And that has been fascinating to me. I need to I've read some mixed reviews on how factual versus how opinionated it is, but I would like to think that is just factual, because then it's like it really is learning the entire history of before we were Homo sapiens till now, every single war, every single religion, every single everything. And I'm wondering if the people who are against it is because he's just telling parts of history that people don't want to hear, or if it really is, more opinion based than fact based. So before I can kind of wholeheartedly recommend it, I want to fact check it myself. But it is fascinating.
Yeah.
So I think that is really about it. What are your future travel plans? So you're in Chiang Mai for a month, you said, and then where are you going to go?
Yeah, well, I plan to do a lot of Asia for the next 9 months or so. The next stop will be Laos, and then Vietnam, Cambodia, then up to China, South Korea, also North Korea, and Japan. And then,
and you mentioned that your daughter is going to be joining.
Yeah,
you.
she joined me a few weeks ago, and she's going to be traveling those countries with me for the next 4 or 5 months, and then I'm going to send her home. She has to go to university, and then I'm going to keep traveling exactly where it brings me. I'm not sure. I think I'll spend a month or two on Bali in the summer before heading to Australia in July, August, in their winter time. It should be best by then.
How old is your daughter?
She's 20.
And how does that feel? Like, is it different traveling with her versus traveling solo?
Yeah, it's very different, but I'm totally enjoying it. And when it's your daughter, you if it was anyone else, you would at some point be annoyed. But that doesn't happen when it's your daughter, and she's a good girl, and and she's a YouTuber, and is very talented in producing and editing videos. So I told her to come out here and help me build my YouTube channel, improve the quality a little bit, and I'll feed you. So
I'm curious, if we had asked her that same question, how do you think she would have responded?
She would have said exactly the same. Yeah, yeah. But we are very open about it, and saying if at some point you need your own space and I need my own space, we don't have to do everything together all the time. And there will probably be times when she's being why am I doing this? Why am I not at home with my mother and the rest of the family and my friends, and we talked about that this morning, and there will come a time when this happens, and we just have to be open about it and take a rest and not travel so much. And yeah.
Okay, so I'm curious about the logistics of it. When you're traveling together, are you staying at a hostel? Are you staying at a hotel with 2 rooms, with sharing 1 room? How does that work?
Well, at the moment we have an apartment here in Chiang Mai, and it's not that big. It's smaller than your apartment. It's basically 1 room and a balcony and twin beds, and that's totally fine. And we'll probably be doing a little bit of hostels and a little bit of Airbnbs around as we go along. Not so much hotels. I try not to do much hotels, but mostly apartments, I think.
Okay. And while you guys are traveling, let's say she's 20, she wants to go out and drink. Do you go with her? Do you just say, "I'll go have fun," or are you like the strict father? You're like, no, like.
Well, I think it's more her that wants that goes home. She goes home before me. At New Year's Eve, she went back at I think 1:30. I said, "You go on party, Dad. I'll go home now. So
it sounds like the dad's the wild one then.
Yeah.
And so let's say you guys are traveling and she meets a guy. Is it the same as when you're back home?
Or a girl.
Or girl. Okay. Yeah. Are you like that? How would that, is that an uncomfortable situation, or how would that work?
No, I don't. Most of all, she's on her YouTube channel. She has a special channel about being asexual. So she's not interested in taking girls or guys back to the apartment. But if that was the case, I'm sure that we would find a situation for that, and maybe get 2 rooms.
But it sounds like you're a very open-minded dad.
Very, yeah.
Okay. And do you see you have another daughter?
Yeah.
How old is she?
She's 22.
And is she not traveling with you?
At some point, yeah. But she's trying to get into a design school, so she's working hard on her project on getting approved to get into that school, but we were talking about at some point she should come out and travel with me for a couple of months when she has the time, maybe do when I'm doing the big road trip of the US in a couple of years' time. She'll come out and join me there, but who knows?
That is very interesting. What advice do you have to other either parents, especially let's say, single fathers who want to travel? Would you recommend that? Would you recommend this lifestyle, the pros and cons of it, and then if so, the pros and cons of taking your family with you?
I wouldn't go traveling when my kids were small, but that's just me. I wouldn't even move to Copenhagen. When I lived in Denmark, it was a 3.5 hours drive to Copenhagen, and it would make so much sense for me when I started my company to do it in Copenhagen, because all the major agencies and the major clients are there, and it would improve my business to be in Copenhagen. But at that point, my kids were 12 and 10, and I was divorced at that point, and they lived with me every other week, 7 days with me and 7 days with their mother. So as long as they lived at my house, I didn't want to be the weekend dad. But that's my priorities, and some other people might have different priorities. If you're a couple and want to go travel, I don't see any reason not to travel with kids. I have very good friends who's done that, and the kids have been in international schools, and they lived in 5 different places around the world, and the kids are very open-minded, and speak a lot of languages and have friends all over. So I absolutely, if you have the possibility to work with your laptop, really, I would encourage the people to do it.
Well, it sounds like even if you don't think you have that possibility, explore it, because you might.
Yeah, try to create it.
I like it. My final question is there a question that I should have asked you that I didn't?
No, I think you've been pretty much around everything. Yeah.
You heard that from the radio guru approving of my interviewing skills. I like it. I appreciate you having me. Well, I guess, being on the show with me. If you want to check out your site, it is theradiovagabond.com. Anything else? Anywhere that you want people to follow you or be in touch?
Well, if you go to theradiovagabond.com, there's links to my Twitter, which is also it is Radio Vagabond, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and all that kind of thing. So yeah. But on theradiovagabond.com, there's links to everything. Awesome.
Well, it's good having you on the show. It's been fun getting to know you. I
enjoyed it.
Yeah. And if any of you guys speak Danish, I had a very brief clip in what show was that?
It was a radio program on national radio in Denmark about podcasting, and I was being interviewed just before I started traveling, and and she asked me, which podcast do you listen to? Because it was a podcasting show that has inspired you. And as number one, I said the Travel Like a Boss podcast. So, I plugged your podcast on national radio.
And that was pretty cool hearing that. And then just kind of cut up, especially in Danish. I couldn't understand it, but that was fun. Thank you for that. And I wish you the best in your travels.
Yeah, thank you, Johnny.
All right. See you guys. Thank you for listening to the Travel Like a Boss podcast. If you want to hear more, including the bonus How to Choose the Perfect Niche episode, join our mailing list at travellikeabosspodcast.com. See you next week, and remember, if you want to travel like a boss, you need to be your own boss. So start your online business today and start living the lifestyle you've always dreamed of.